Sometimes you may want to grant access to your class's private variables to another specific class or even a few select classes. This is accomplished with a friend declaration. Here I have a working copy of simpleinheritance.cpp from chapter 7 of the exercise files. And let's take a look at what happens if I move our protected constructor to private. I can do that by just deleting this protected label here. And now our constructor is private. So you see that we get an error for each of these. It's trying to call this private constructor. Base class has a private constructor. So that's not working. I can force this to work by declaring these derived classes as friends. I can say friend class dog, and I'll just copy that and add cat and pig. And now you'll notice that I don't have that error anymore, and I can build and run, and it works. This works, but it also exposes all of the private members of the base class to these derived classes. In other words, the dog, cat, and pig classes now have access to all the private members, including the data members, of the animal class. You can also declare functions as friends. If I come down here and create a standalone function, and I want to give this the underscore, so this is trying to access the private data member underscore name, and you notice my error here, name is a private member of animal. So I can make that work, I can force it to work by coming up here and declaring that function as a friend. Now you'll notice that that error has gone away, and I can use that function down here. And I build and run, and it says the pig is named Arnold. So now this function, getAnimalName, because it's declared as a friend up here, it can access all the private variables and the private members in the animal class. This can be convenient, but it also undermines encapsulation and a lot of the controls that make object-oriented programming work so well. It's usually safer to just use an accessor in the animal interface. And so I can really get this same result without the friend declaration, and come up here and use the accessor method. And I build and run, and you see that we are still able to get at that data, but the control remains where it belongs in the class. And the same is actually true of these friend declarations. By keeping our constructor as protected, we're leaving control where it belongs in the base class, and see that we can accomplish all of these things without making any of these classes or functions friends. So the friend declaration allows you to grant private member access to other classes and functions, and this can be handy sometimes, and it may even be necessary at times, but it should always be used with caution. Most of the time, it's best practice to access private members through the class interface methods.